we hope that what we talk about today will help not just with mobile games, but just in general. Hopefully will be some good skills, and welcome questions as we go through it as well. Do you have the clicker?
Yes. Now I do. Cool. Okay, so first quick question. I mean, how many of you here have your dream job right now? I mean, how many of you here, yeah, I know you do. Yeah, awesome. How many of you here like love it, you know, wake up every morning, super stoked to go to work, not so stoked to come home, I don't know, whatever, but really loving it? Well, it's great. This is continuation. I mean, whether you have your dream job now or you want to stay on that path, everything that we talk about is still equally relevant. It's making sure that, you know, we have the right tools and we have the right methodology in place to make sure that your job hunt is as strategic and efficient as possible.
And how many new grads, by show of hands? Woo!
Oh, yay.
Which schools? Where are you guys coming from? All right. Awesome. I know lots of people at all of those places.
Yeah. So just a little bit about us. This is where we work. Both of us work at EA Canada in Vancouver. I support our central teams around quality, automation. So my recruiting world is mostly around software engineering. Prior to that, I spent 2 years at Unity recruiting for them all over the place. Yeah, shout out, hey, what's up? Yeah, still dear to my heart, of course. You think?
I actually recruit for some of our game development teams and some of our central teams. So we have, of course, in Vancouver, we make FIFA, which is a little known game in the world. Also the Plants vs. Zombies console franchise, so Garden Warfare, which is one of my favorite games to play. And then also our central teams, which is for the artists. So we have, it's called Artworks, and that's where all of our artists sit as they work on different teams. And I actually have a background in recruiting for post-secondary schools. So I worked at VFS and the Art Institute, and it's interesting now I get to see a lot of those designers, artists, engineers at the other side of the tunnel. So it's pretty exciting.
Wealth of experience. So before we get into kind of the details, I mean, the first place, before we start, is I want you guys to think a little bit about, you know, what does your career look like in 10, 15 years, 5 years even? What does it look like? I mean, thinking about your dream job, thinking about where you want to be, what your life should look like. Getting a sense of what that should look like really will help you reverse engineer and kind of create a path backwards so that you can take a look at, you know, what would that look like? What would that journey look like to make sure that you're on that right path? One of the things that I think is a good way to kind of get a sense of that is, of course, looking through or utilizing LinkedIn. If you want to be a creative director in 10 years, you know, okay, get a sense of, you know, who's out there at the studio that you want to be at in a creative director role. What does their career path look like? What types of jobs, what types of posts did they have that helped them inch closer to that role? It also helps you get a sense of, okay, well, maybe I don't want to be, you know, an executive producer, or maybe I don't want to do this. But you, throughout this exercise, get a chance to really narrow down what you want to do so that you can ultimately focus your job hunt.
And when we think about getting started, then you can go on to the next one. When we think about getting started, there are some common sort of pitfalls that we all tend to fall into, either if we're just starting out or if we've kind of been out there for some time. So what's the number one thing we start with when we're thinking about getting out there and looking for a job? It's usually our resume, right? And we see a lot of them, I would say, coming in. And one of the most common things that I see is overload on resume, be it sort of visuals, bright colors, or too much information. It's really difficult to break down who this individual is. And then often also there's like, I don't know if it's an air of mystery, but for an artist not to include their link to their portfolio or to their demo reel is also a big no-no, I would say. So definitely have complete information on there. People think it's such a basic, but it's actually one of the most common things that I find, just missing information on resumes. Also have them proofread. So have somebody, be it a mentor from a school, be it a mentor from the industry, a critic who lives at home with you. So somebody who's really good at giving you some honest feedback, go through it and break it down for you, and don't take offense. Also, another thing that I would say is seems to be a big myth is, you know what, I'm really interested in working at, let's say, EA. I'm just going to apply to every single role that they have open. Yeah, I'm an artist, I'll just apply to that software engineer role. That way they'll see my resume and somebody will recognize me. It doesn't really make sense. It tends to be counterproductive. So I would suggest looking at, the reverse engineering of your career path and thinking, what is an appropriate entry-level position or a mid-level position for this career goal, and apply to those specific positions. So have your search be really, really targeted. That's good. In terms of role playing a little bit, I'm a big fan of role playing. So interview role play with somebody home, usually somebody who has done pretty well. You want to role play with them and get them to give you some feedback.
Feel free to, connecting with recruiters as a resource and connecting with anybody that you know in your network, family or friends that have been in a hiring position. I mean, this is a great opportunity for you to get a sense of what did people do well, what didn't they do well, and how can you tap into that information so you're not repeating and replicating those errors if you go into interviews and apply for jobs yourself. One of the things I know a lot of people don't do, and I think is just such a wealth of information and really sets you apart, is really organizing your job hunt. Here, Excel is your best friend, okay? So every time whether even for myself, if I'm going into a new role, I'm going into a new career, I really think about, okay, how am I going to keep all of this information organized? LinkedIn is not enough. Just applying for the roles and keeping it on a post-it note somewhere, not enough, because all of this that we're talking about right now connects back together, especially getting you and inching you closer to that job offer. So when you're organizing your job hunt, you're going to look at, what are the jobs that you're applying for? Where are you applying for them? Who did you connect to, if anyone? What was the stuff that you talked about? What was the roles and the responsibilities? On our end, as a recruiter and as a recruiting team, when we look at one person that has applied, most applicant tracking systems, to Jesenka's point, will tell you all of the other roles that person has applied for. So you should have that information as well on your own side. I want you to say, okay, well, if I applied to EA, I applied to these 3 jobs at EA, and these were the roles that I applied to and who I spoke with and why I was interested in them. So you can tailor that information and tailor that dialogue should you connect with someone down the road in the future that you can help kind of just pull everything back together. You're going to be applying to a lot of different jobs, or maybe you won't. Maybe there's going to be 2 or 3 companies that are at the top of your list that are most important to you. So utilizing Excel and putting it all together in a spreadsheet really helps keep things organized and helps you also nurture your network down the road. So if you met with Dana when you went through the initial interview, track that information. It may be 2 or 3 years down the road and you see me again. I hope I'll remember you, but you can say, hey, how's it going? I remember I applied for that job, blah, blah, blah. What's going on right now? Let's connect, let's have a coffee. That small gesture can unravel into a wealth of opportunities.
I would also say, kind of to add to that point, also organize yourself in the way of who do I know in the industry. So these are, Vancouver's a pretty small town, so chances are you'll know somebody at one of the studios. So also figure that out. Keep a list of everybody who's maybe in your graduating class or mentors at your schools. I know I work right now with a lot of people who are mentors at the VFSs, the AIs, VCADs, etc. So, these could be really good ins as well, because I for sure look at referrals right away.
Absolutely. As you move forward and kind of building your career, your point.
Yeah. As you kind of think about building your career also, I know we're all social beings. Who here is on Facebook? I am not only like 3 of you. I find that really difficult to believe. Okay. Twitter? But Twitter is kind of like a mystery to me. I'm still kind of working on it. And then LinkedIn. So how many people are LinkedIn? Okay. So there are different strategies for each one. If we think about who we are as a persona on our Facebook or our LinkedIn or our Twitter, you can play to the strengths of those social media outlets to kind of propel yourself forward. So, the big key is keep everything clean in terms of being organized, but also clean in terms of content. Twitter should be kept interesting. That's probably the easiest way to think about it. So who are you? Maybe you're an artist or a developer, so you know that that's your kind of key area that you want to focus on, and maybe you have a couple of hobbies related to, I don't know, maybe anime, or maybe you really love, I know a lot of developers really like Japanese, so maybe you really like Japanese and you're learning that, so you want to kind of put up areas of interest on Twitter to kind of vary up your feed a little bit, but then also maybe a lot of things specific to studios that you enjoy or areas of expertise that you're focusing in on. Keep your Facebook up to date. I don't know how many of you have looked at your hobbies and things on Facebook, but some of them are like from 2007, and I don't know, but mine usually are, you know, they've changed. I don't like the same things anymore. So we look for culture fits, obviously, in people that we look to hire. So if I look at your hobbies or your interests or maybe where you volunteer, how do those line up with the culture that we're looking to continue building out at our place of employment, right? So kind of think on that too. And you don't have to make things up. They should be who you are, and we'll talk about authenticity in a bit too. And then keep LinkedIn professional. So you can click this guy. Which one is it? Is your LinkedIn profile ready for potential employers or for recruiters too? Because I see so many people for specific roles, you know, be it the art side or the engineering side or the design side or project management. So what's going to make you stand out in the best positive light? And how can you make yourself look as professional as possible? So this is me. I don't know if I'm like the most, but the point is there's no cookie cutter approach to it, but you want to be really specific in who you are. So, you know, there's me, here's Dana, you know, unicorn wrangler, so makes sense, right? You don't have to be recruiter. You can have a different type of title. You can be creative in how you represent yourself. That's where some of your personality comes out, but you should also just know your audience, right? Like I want to attract an amazing designer. I want amazing, you know, CG soups to talk to me, or mission designers, or rendering engineers. So how can I set myself up in my career to make sure that I catch their attention and I come across as authentic too? Mm-hmm. So, but no cookie cutter approach, unfortunately.
Just remember that your LinkedIn profile is your partner and partners with your resume. If it's not up to date, we don't have all of the information to reach out to you. So, you know, whether you're actively looking for a new job or not looking for a new job, your LinkedIn profile should always be totally current.
And the other thing that probably is a kind of go-to for across all the different social media platforms is harsh opinions, things like that, you know, kind of keep it on the DL a bit, excess emotions. These are kinds of things that people will look at and will stand out. So, mm-hmm. I mean, you can, but it doesn't always agree with everybody, right? Mm-hmm. So some of the things when it comes to photos in particular, they're hard. It's hard for me to choose a photo also for my LinkedIn. I feel like we need a photo shoot every once in a while and get that up to date. But you know, some kind of, you know, pet photo, maybe not the best idea. If you've been in the industry for 10, 15 years and now you want to, you know, put up, I don't know, like a
super awesome photo.
A super awesome like Darth Vader photo or something. Yeah, you can do that then, or like a pictorial thing. But you know, when you're kind of entering in, or if you're trying to get ahead, it might not be the best way to do it.
Cropped photos are the worst.
Cropped
Do not
photos
crop exes or anything like that, or just people out of your photos in general. Your photo should be of yourself. You should be able to see your face rather than like someone's hand on your shoulder or half of someone else's face. This is still your representation of yourself professionally. So it's keeping that in mind. You know, like thinking back, what does my LinkedIn photo actually look like? That it should still be a representation of you and just you.
Yeah. The other thing is we were kind of chatting about it this morning, and it's referring to yourself in the third person. It's kind of weird. I don't know. People do it. Apparently, it's kind of I don't know. It's a bit of a no-no. I mean, you can do it if your work looks good. Nobody will care. But yeah, and make sure the information is complete. So that's the most important thing. Put the real, because if I'm looking for an artist, it takes up a lot of my time if I'm going on LinkedIn, and then I have to Google the people to find their reels, and then they have like websites that make no sense with their names, so they're really difficult to find. I'll just give up and go look at somebody else. So keep that relevant and up to date too.
So we've talked a little about social media. We've talked about kind of, you know, getting a sense of what you want to do. Obviously, you all are here. So the next piece of the career part is really getting involved. You know, having a social media presence and applying to jobs isn't enough. Now we have great opportunities to connect to potential employers, connect to potential teams that we really want to work on. Just products and stuff that are really interesting to us. Get out there, get involved. Here in Vancouver, there's a really vibrant meetup community. I have co-organized the Unity meetup here in Vancouver for probably 3 years now, and it's awesome. I've connected with so many really great people, a lot of which are here today. So get into those meetups and you know, even with your conference over the next couple of days here with PG Connects, what do you want to get out of it? I mean, aside from just information and, you know, networking with a bunch of people, what should that yield? What should that ROI actually look like? Do you want to get a job? Do you want to learn about a specific tech? Do you want to network with X amount of people? Set some specific goals every time you go to events, so you know that of your time being as precious as it is, you know what you want to get out of it, and that you can walk away saying, I connected with 5 people, I met those 5 people at that meetup, and then I connected with them on LinkedIn, and I've got a coffee, you know, meeting set up next week. All of that is just you continuing to build your network and build just what you understand and what you know of the industry that we've, you know, chosen to be a part of. Everything is changing constantly, which is super exciting, but it also requires us to commit our time and be super strategic with our time, depending on what we want to do.
I'm going to use a buzzword, authenticity. I know it's been kind of like out there in the past little while, but authenticity can mean a couple of different things to people, but we can all agree that it means, you know, being who you are, being true to yourself, and having that sort of integrity to say, you know, this is who I am as a, you know, brother, sister, husband, wife, person, co-worker, but also a creative person, right? So who am I? What kinds of things am I willing to work on? Do I want to work on? Where do I want to excel? And what kind of teammate do I want to be? Especially in game development, it's all about that team. Our big tagline at EA is one team, right? So there's a really big focus on that, because if, you know, one of the links is broken in the chain, that game is not coming out when it's supposed to come out, and then you're losing a lot of money, and everybody's disappointed, and customers are complaining, so et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's a really important buzzword to use. A couple of aspects to it are self-awareness, so knowing, you know, who you are, so having that introspective way of thinking about it, and consistency. So, you know, be it at an event, a phone screen, a studio interview, on the street, you know, if Dana and I meet the same person over a space of, you know, a couple of years, we should walk away with the same idea of who that person is. So it's not about, you know, being a nice person to one person and then being terrible, you know, as you turn around. So you kind of all know about those things. There is a caveat to it, you know, be open to change though, because authenticity can also make you stagnant. Think about the fact that who you are at the age of 20 is probably not going to be the person who you are at the age of 30. It definitely should not be the same person. You are going to grow, so look for those mentorship opportunities. Look for that feedback loop that can make you authentic, but also flexible to grow. Don't be without a filter too, so sometimes it's good to be authentic, but you can be a little bit overwhelmingly authentic, and it might not come across in all arenas, especially as you're trying to break into maybe a studio or an industry and you don't know everything, right? But you kind of think you do when you're younger, and then when you're my age, you figure out you don't know anything.
I know everything.
So those are maybe, you know, if we can say walk away with one thing that's super important, it's the idea of authenticity, but also being flexible to change it up as you move through the industry.
So we've talked about a lot of things. Obviously, we're going to pull together a bunch of resources, and if anybody's interested in following up in terms of learning about a little bit more about authenticity, learning a little bit more about some of the tools that we use as we organize our job hunts, please feel free to connect. This is our Twitter, but we also have cards, so we're happy to give them out. Thank you very much for your time.
Questions?
Great, thank you guys. Yeah, authenticity, I mean, you're standing out. I'd never imagined doing that, let alone networking as a job. I mean, who'd think of that? Oh, wait.
Yeah, of course you would.
Oh, wait, my career. Anyone got any questions, guys? One right here. We'll see if we can get a mic to you.
Hi, my name is Ian, and
Laurie, it's fine.
asking about like resume, for example, it's because at the end of the day, recruiters are human beings, and each has to his own, like, some can maybe like the way that your resume is being presented, and someone won't like. So how do you find the right balance in order to be like, okay, I don't like that, and then just like being disqualified immediately when they see your resume?
There's some things that work universally, right? And for me, you kind of have to think about it in terms of, if I were a recruiter, because it's usually going to be the recruiter who looks at your resume, not necessarily the hiring manager, what are they usually looking for, and what are they discerning in terms of the information on there? So you want all of your basics on there, so contact info, reel, like if you're an artist, the reel makes absolutely, that's your calling card, right? Really simple in terms of work experience, and then just having those key technologies or key skills stand out. But you know, having an essay at the beginning, for example, is really distracting. You know, we're humans, so we look at so many, so we really need to be able to skim through and get what we need out of it very easily and very quickly.
Like a recruiter will spend at most less than 10 seconds doing the first glance of a resume. Less than 10 seconds is what you have for me to be able to extrapolate. Boom, 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 boom. He or she has these skills that I know that we need for this role moving forward. Of course, we spend more time digging in as we kind of, you know, see those few key pieces and then decide to go further. But things, to Jesenka's point, can get really distracting if there's a ton of color, if it's 17 pages long. You know, I've worked with people that have been in the industry for 20, 30 years, and still their resumes, you know, they keep it to like, you know, 3 to 4 pages at that point, even still is like extreme.
I say keep it to a page.
Maximum, extreme maximum. Yeah, a page is great. 2 pages is as far as you'd want to go. But I mean, when you look at your resume, you're thinking of it as prime real estate. All of the information and data going into that real estate has to be all of the best things of you, your achievements, your, you know, the things that the challenges that you faced, and of course what you're looking for as well.